Webinars will be recorded. Thank you for reminding it. This option is not yet tested. Hopefully this is done. For people that cannot attend this particular session, I can only say that after we finish the cycle of first 5 ones, we're going to have at least one more series starting from topic 1 to topic 5 again. So if somebody's late, couldn't attend, more or less the same content will be broadcasted live by me again. By the way, if you have any questions, please do interrupt me either using your microphone, so using voice channel, or in chat. I will try to address all your concerns during the presentation, not waiting at the end. On the other side, at the end, there should be a couple of minutes of time for questions and answers. All right. Scrum framework. I hope majority of attendees have seen that or a similar picture. I'm not sure about the level of your understanding or how much familiar you are with Scrum. So a couple of just really general highlights on this methodology. Scrum is a framework developed in the middle of 1990s, the framework for delivering value. Value in IT industry is usually understood as software. The framework is basically very simple. It consists of 3 roles, 3 artifacts, and 5 events, and here they are. So, product owner, one of the roles not necessarily visible on the picture, is a person responsible for product development and holding full responsibility for the first artifact in Scrum called product backlog. This is a list, prioritized list of requirements, functionalities, user stories, use cases, whatever we have on a project, things to do to be developed. Development team, cross-functional development team, collocated, ideally development team, holding all needed competences to develop this stack of functionalities. During the sprint planning meeting, is transforming a subset of this product backlog into so-called sprint backlog, which is basically a plan for sprint. Sprint is an iteration, short from 1 up to 4 weeks long time period. In the time period, the development team is responsible for developing, which in IT means analyzing, coding, testing, deploying, and whatever else is needed in this particular project. So they're responsible for developing this part of product backlog that was planned for the sprint. During this sprint, during this cycle, there are daily Scrum meetings, which are nothing else but daily planning meetings. Every day, same time, the same team meets together with their product owner and Scrum Master, who facilitates the process in order to replan or plan the next 24 hours. We do inspect and adapt every 24 hours. At the end of the sprint, at the end of the iteration, the team should deliver an increment. Increment is a potentially shippable product. Useful, maybe not necessary, but for sure usable part of end product, part of software. This product, including its demonstration, it's reviewed during sprint review meeting that is held at the end of the iteration, after which the team has separate meeting for themselves to inspect and adapt on their process. The meeting is called sprint retrospective. The green arrow here at the bottom means that whatever we see, whatever we realize from process, content, and product point of view at the end of the sprint should actually matter and should update both vision and the product backlog as the set of requirements. That's, let's say, pure theory. There's much more, and these parts that might be missing in the framework, therefore that's framework, not a full process, can be developed later during conversations, daily work, training, and other type of work with development team. However, from customer point of view, customer perspective, I guess that at the moment this is all that you need. So, benefit one of outsourcing software development in Scrum is focus on business value. I will come back to the picture that I've showed in here. There's nothing about money. There's nothing about value. There are a lot of myths about Scrum framework, that Scrum is for teams, for building teams, for delivering something frequently, but there's actually no place for value. However, actually, the value does matter at all. Scrum framework by definition is a method of maximizing business value. So we would like as a team, as a provider of software, to focus mainly on what is valuable to customer, what is valuable for users, end users or customers of our customers. How come? Let's look at the following charts. That chart presents a couple of topics altogether. First of all, we have a classical approach to software development, the so-called cascade model, waterfall model, that in this particular example is divided into 4 separate phases: analysis, design, code, testing with integration. And we can say that as a part of each phase, many things, many activities could be done. For instance, in analysis, we have business analysis, functional requirements, specification is written. During design, we talk about both system design and technical specification. While coding, we'll actually do programming and unit tests coding. And for instance, in test phase, we can have system testing as well as user acceptance tests. If we look at the risk related to the product, the red curve shows how it goes. At the beginning, the risk is generally low because, well, what can happen during analysis and design? Not much. The more we go far from documentation that we produce in the very beginning of the project, the more closer we are to the coding, so touching real system, we turned out that the complexity of this subject, including risk, goes up and up. In testing phase, and remember it from all waterfall projects, the highest pressure that we have is somewhere between coding and testing, or in the middle of test phase, which means that we somehow suddenly discover a lot of issues, a lot of problems. And immediately after that, there's a deadline. So the only build of software is scheduled. That's the risk analysis in a very brief overview. If we focus on that picture on value delivery, we'll find out that actually for the majority of duration of the project, especially these 2 phases, no big value is added. Because what is value in software development? Nothing else but working software. We have no working software after analysis phase, no working software after design, however some wireframes might be useful for end user. Then during the coding phase, we have some software, but I wouldn't say it's done. It's ready. Because it's done, it's ready when it's tested and proved that that has its value. So the green line showing how much value do we deliver in time is flat for the very, very long time period. On the other hand, in Scrum projects, we can have it completely different. But let me look at the chart. There is a question. Okay, noted. Coming back to the presentation. All right. So in Scrum approach, as I said, we're working in sprints, in iterations, which means that the entire cycle of analysis, design, coding, and testing should be performed within this small time period. At the end of the period, we have build of potentially shippable product. That means that although the risk goes very, very high at the very beginning, the entire cycle that you could see on that picture is narrowed to one iteration, no longer than 4 weeks by definition. In terms of next and next iteration, the risk actually goes down, and that's related to the fact that we're inspecting and adapting our process, our product, project every sprint. On the other hand, the value is added very, very fast. Already at the end of the first sprint, we have something that can be shown, can be demonstrated, can be used. And all the magic that is there in Scrum and should work, because that's the essence, is that the highest valuable elements, the features of the highest value for the end customer should be developed at the very beginning, so that the line is not flat, the green one, but actually it's growing very fast at the very beginning and is getting flat later when we deliver less valuable items. That's the first and I think the most important benefit of having projects outsourced or in general realized using Scrum. We're focusing on delivery frequently and delivering something of the highest value. Second benefit is working software after every sprint. As already said on the previous pictures, in Scrum, we should have working piece of software at the end of each cycle, 1, 2, 3, or 5 weeks long. Assuming I need a bicycle, the classic approach, looking at the entire timeline, is similar to what we have on this picture. After 1/3, we have some analysis and a part of bicycle done. In the second phase, maybe 2 wheels. In the third phase, well, it seems more like something that I would like to ride on, but we have fully usable and useful project at the very, very end. That's not the case in Scrum. In Scrum, I would like to have usable product at the end of each cycle. Perhaps at the end of the first one, it doesn't look like the end product, not the second, third, and so on. However, at the end of each cycle, I can do right. I couldn't ride on 1 wheel, 2 wheels, or something like that. I can ride using any of these increments one by one. What's the difference? Well, first of all, Agile software development, particularly in Scrum, says we have both analysis and programming. For programming or testing, both testing and deployment, all needed aspect of software development embedded in each cycle. So if we go through the entire cycle during 4 weeks, we should have something fully useful. That's the biggest benefit for all customers of Scrum projects, because what is developed in a short cycle can be used by you. If the product is not developed for you, but is a tool for your company to be used with your customers, you can show it to your customers not at the very end of the project, but in the middle. The increment, as I named potentially shippable product, is a potentially shippable piece of software. It doesn't mean that you should go to your customer with every increment after each sprint, but in theory and in practice, you could do it. Usually, what I can observe is that such an extended demo or deployment and live usage of the software is done not necessarily every single sprint, but every second, every third, but definitely more often than once at the end of the project. This can give you an additional opportunity to check whether the development of your software goes into the right direction. And that's all about the third benefit, opportunity to respond to change. According to research here, I have studies by Advanced Development Methods, 35% 95% of requirements do change during the project. The longer project is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years long. We had such projects perhaps 10 years ago more often than nowadays. The higher this rate is. The shorter project is, perhaps the percentage of requirements change is a bit lower. However, there's another number here on the chart. 65% of functionality is not used. The exact data were that 49% is never used, and all the remaining up to 65% is used rarely. And actually, it's not so shocking number if we consider, for instance, very common application like Microsoft Word. Given the fact there are plenty of different features in Microsoft Word, I'm really curious what's the percentage of features that you use in your daily work. 5, 10, 15. These are the numbers that I usually get during classes that I hold during various workshops. Of course, you did pay at least for 100% of these functionalities. So what for? If Scrum prescribes frequent cycles and every single cycle is finished with working software, it's not only an opportunity for me to show the software to my customers or to deploy it and start using at least these parts that are developed so far. It gives me also an immediate picture of what I have and an opportunity to change the scope in future. About particular aspects, how the scope should be changed, what's the change request or change process. We have another webinar related to contracts in Scrum in 2 weeks. I will show the message, I'll show the information about it at the end of this meeting as well. However, it's there, it's possible, and at least in theory, it's very easy to do. Finally, because I started with that, we said at the very beginning that Scrum very often is treated only as a process for teams so that they work better. I hope I proved already that this is not the case. Scrum is for maximizing business value, for focusing on the value, checking whether the product development goes in the right direction. Still, the aspect of a high-performing team, dedicated high-performing team, is also visible. That's going to happen in 4th and 5th webinar in our series, when I'm going to talk more about the details of building teams and how it does matter. At the moment, I would like to talk about just one tiny aspect related to high performance of teams, and the aspect is called multitasking, or the sin of multitasking. These are quite old studies made on a significant number of teams and projects, and show what is the influence of number of parent projects on effectiveness of various teams or even team members. If a team has just one project, the first column, they put 100% attention to the project. If we imagine a situation quite often in many software houses that one team in parallel has 2 projects on their desk, we would automatically think, okay, 50% for project A, 50% for project B. According to the research, that's not the case. It's no more than 40% per project, so altogether 80. The remaining 20% simply disappears. It's a loss to context switching. Please mind that software development is not a physical work that requires muscles. It's intellectual work. Somebody says it's craftsmanship. Somebody it's more like art. Nevertheless, it's not that I just came to my computer and started to code. I need to think where I stopped last time. I need to consult with team members, about different solutions, and when I'm sure, I'm starting. If I have to switch my context very often, look what we have in case of 3 projects, 4 projects, 5 projects, that's completely counterproductive. We lose a lot of time. There's also money for actually nothing, switching the context. Scrum methodology is very consistent about the topic. There should be one collocated, cross-functional, self-organized team, at least one, working for one product. If there are more products to be realized, well, that's a more advanced case, also visible. However, if we're talking about outsourcing your software development to Scrum teams, I guess that only column 1 and option 1 should be considered. In our case, that's huge loss of money and time. All right. There are definitely more than 4 benefits of outsourcing software in Scrum. Today I managed to cover those 4 as to me these are the most important ones. To give you a summary, first of all, we talked about focus on business value as the key part of Scrum, very often forgotten. This is the framework to maximize the business value, which means to identify it, to track it, to make decisions so that the highest valuable items are developed firstly. Then, according to the cycle cadence, working software should be there after every sprint. It can be used, it can be demonstrated. Based on that, and that's the third benefit, we have an opportunity to respond to change. If something changed, I don't need to wait till the end of the project. I have an opportunity to change it right now from sprint to sprint. Finally, dedicated, high-performing team, well-built team, self-organized team, according to research, is much more faster in terms of both time, but also much better in terms of quality comparing to random teams or teams that are subject to command and control style of management. There are more, definitely, as well as there are more details on those 4 benefits. About them, we're going to talk a bit more during the next sessions. Let me give you a little insight on what we have here. In 2 weeks, contracts in Scrum, a very painful problem, at least in Eastern Europe, how to create a contract between a software house and a customer so that it works in Scrum with not a lot of bureaucracy around. That's possible. There are some ideas. I'm going to present it in 2 weeks. Then product ownership. So the key part of Scrum that says how do I measure value? How do I identify value? How do I maximize the value? How to get simply what you need. We're going to focus about it in 1 month. I heard an opinion, and that's topic 4, that Scrum teams are a bit more expensive than a regular waterfall one. Honestly, I didn't get to any research providing it. In my experience, it also not so visible. However, I would like to explain in details what do you really pay for if you outsource Scrum to Scrum team. And finally, the 4th of August, Scrum from the customer's perspective. So I would like to give you a deeper insight on Scrum, however, not coming back to the picture that I showed at the very beginning, showing the cadence, but what you should expect from Scrum team and what you are expected by them. Thank you very much. I wish you good day, good night, depending on where you dialed in. And if you have any questions related to this topic, this is the moment that you can either talk or write on chat. We have a couple of minutes, or I have a couple of minutes here, especially for you. All right, I can't see anything on chat. Nobody also spoke up. Thank you very much for the presentation. And that was recorded. Please look carefully at our Facebook page or our blog, where for sure there will be more information soon about both the current webinar and forthcoming as well. Have a good day or good night, and hopefully see you and hear you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.